silent about evil is a great harm to the ummah. Because when a person is silent about evil, it leaves the people to continue on in that which is displeasing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So our ummah, the ummah of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, from us being the best of the nations, we enjoin that which is good and we forbid that which is evil. This makes us the best of the people as the ummah of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And this is a part of our faith, because Allah, He mentions at the end of that verse, and you believe in Allah. So enjoining the good and forbidding the evil is a part of Iman. So this is not something that we can overlook. This is not something that we can be quiet about, when this is a matter of our faith. When this is a matter of us being the best of the people with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah, He mentions, وَالْمُؤْمِنُونَ وَالْمُؤْمِنَاتِ بَعْضُهُمْ أَوْلِيَاءُ بَعْضٍ يَأْمُرُونَ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ وَيَنْهَوْنَ عَنِ الْمُنكَرِ. The believing men and the believing women, they are the protectors and the friends of one another. They enjoin the good and they forbid that which is evil. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes the believers as being friends and the protectors of one another, the believing men and the believing women. And then look what He mentions that comes as a result of that relationship that we have with one another as believers, that we enjoin the good and forbid the evil. Meaning our iman, our friendship, the guardianship that we have with one another necessitates that we enjoin the good and forbid the evil with one another. Not the buddy system. That's my man, I'm not going to say nothing. That goes against Islam. That's from the affairs of Jahiliyyah. That a person, he does not enjoin the good and forbid the evil with his friend because that's his friend. That's his comrade, or that's his family member, that's his tribe mate, or the likes. Being silent about evil, being silent as it relates to enjoying the good, because you are close with someone, this goes against the deen of Islam. This goes against the deen of Islam. From the deen of Islam is that we have a brotherhood, and that brotherhood is a sincere brotherhood. إِنَّمَا الْمُؤْمِنُونَ إِخْوَةٌ. Indeed, the believers are brothers to one another. But being brothers to one another means at times we have to correct each other. Being brothers to one another means at times we have to pull each other's coat. At times we have to give advice. At times we have to be stern with one another. Sometimes it calls for that. But that's not the origin. The origin is gentleness, as we will see, and kindness when dealing with one another. But there are times when we have to be stern with one another. But this is not because we're trying to hurt the person, because we're trying to prevent a greater evil, stop an evil from taking place, or cease an evil that is taking place and bring about that which is good. So the relationship between the believers, the men and the women, is a relationship of love and mercy, yes, and also is a relationship that they enjoin the good and forbid the evil with one another. The Prophet ﷺ mentioned, مَنْ رَأَ مِنْكُمْ مُنْكَرًا فَلْيُغَيِّرْهُ بِيَدِهِ فَإِنْ لَمْ يَسْتَطِعْ فَبِلِسَانِهِ فَإِنْ لَمْ يَسْتَطِعْ فَبِقَلْبِهِ وَذَلِكَ أَضْعَفُ الْإِيمَانِ. That whoever from amongst you sees an evil, then let him change it with his hand. And if he's not able to change it with his hand, then let him change it with his tongue. If he's not able to change it with his tongue, then let him change it with his heart, and that is the weakest of faith. And what's meant by that is the weakest of faith, meaning in comparison to the first two matters that were mentioned. Not that the person is weak in faith. I think many people have a misunderstanding of this narration. That they understand the narration to mean that the one who changes the evil with his heart, or hates the evil in his heart, that he has weak faith. No. There are levels to changing the evil. If you are a person who has authority, a person who has strength, a person who has capability, then you change it with your hand. But if you can't, because it may lead to a greater evil, right? Or you're just not capable of changing it with your hand, then you go down to that next level. And that is changing it with your speech. And if you can't, because it may lead to a greater evil, you cannot speak out at the time because of the harm that may come back to you, the harm that may come back to the Muslims. Okay, you dislike it and you hate it in your heart, you change it in your heart. And that's the weakest of faith, meaning from those three. not that the person himself is weak in faith. Because how many times there have been situations throughout the history of Islam where you have those who are the strongest in faith who are not able to speak out. And another example, towards the end of time, we know that when the Ya'juj and the Ma'juj, they come out, there's going to be so many of them that when they come to like a lake, they will drink from this lake, and once the last of them get there, there'll be no more water in the lake. That's how many of them there are. But Isa alayhi salam and the believers that are with him, they will run and flee away from the Ya'juj and the Ma'juj. Is Isa a coward? No, he's not a coward. And the believers are not cowards. However, they don't have the ability to fend them off. They don't have the ability, so they have to retreat. So sometimes you can be the strongest one in faith, but you may not be able to stop or change an evil with your hands. So the Prophet ﷺ mentioned those three levels of changing the evil. Shaykh bin Baz rahimahullah ta'ala, he says, أما ما خالف النص من الكتاب والسنة فالواجب الإنكار على من خالف النص بالحكمة والموعظة الحسنة والجدال التي هي أحسن عملا بقوله تعالى ادع إلى سبيل ربك بالحكمة والموعظة الحسنة وجادلهم بالتي هي أحسن. Shaykh bin Baz rahimahullah ta'ala, he says, as for that which opposes the text from the book and the sunnah, it is obligatory to rebuke, to make inkar upon the one who opposes the text. However, how? He said, with wisdom, with good speech, and debating in a manner that is best. This is the origin right here. When it comes to making inkar upon someone who is in opposition to the kitab and the sunnah, you do it with wisdom, you do it with good speech, and if we debate in the best manner. And unfortunately, it's the opposite. And the opposite has become the norm. No wisdom, evil speech, and abusive wording and language when people debate. This goes against the principles of how to call the people to the truth. And the Shaykh, he mentioned, this is implementing the statement of Allah Ta'ala, call to the way of your Lord with wisdom and beautiful preaching, and debate with him in a manner that is best. And we have in the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam the best example when it comes to enjoining the good and forbidding the evil, when it comes to responding to the one or refuting the one who is in opposition. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions, لَقَدْ كَانَ لَكُمْ فِي رَسُولِ اللَّهِ أُسْوَةٌ حَسَنَةٌ. Indeed, you have in the Messenger of Allah a beautiful example. The Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he used to refute and correct those who were in error. And there are many examples that can be given. The first example we start off with is with his wife Aisha radiallahu anha. And Aisha radiallahu anha, who is she to him? She's the most beloved of the people to him. As when the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was asked, "Man ahabbu an-nas ilayk?" Qala Aisha. Qila wa min ar-rijal? Qala Abuha, Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu. It was said, O kama qala sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who is the most beloved of the people to you? The Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, Aisha. And then it was said, and from the men who, her father, Abu Bakr. Or as the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said. So here we have Aisha, she said to the Prophet one day, Hasbuk min Sophia kada wa kada. It is enough for you that Sophia is like this and this. And what she meant was that Sophia was short in height. And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he reprimanded her. He rebuked her for what she said. لَقَدْ قُلْتِ كَلِمَةً لَوْ مُزِجَتْ بِمَاءِ الْبَحْرِ لَمَزَجَتْهُ. He said, you have said a word or a statement that if it was mixed with the water of the sea, it would pollute it. Now who is this again to him? The most beloved of the people. So this here is a proof that the Prophet ﷺ was not upon the buddy system. This is his wife wife, the most beloved of the people to him, he corrected her. She was wrong because her statement, it falls under the category of backbiting. So the Prophet ﷺ corrected her and did not allow the situation to just go and him not say nothing. Because as the principle goes, لا يجوز تأخير البيان لوقت الحاجة. That is not permissible to delay clarifying the truth at the time of need. And this was a time for the Prophet ﷺ to clarify to Aisha radiallahu anha that what she said was incorrect. And he still loved her. He still loved her. And he still treated her and lived with her in a good way. But at that point, when she made that statement, it was incorrect, and the Prophet corrected her. Another example is the example of Mu'adh bin Jabal radiallahu anhu. This is another beloved companion to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. As the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said to him, Ya Mu'adh, Wallahi inni la uhibbuka fillah. O Mu'adh, indeed I love you for the sake of Allah. And then he taught him the dua to say at the end of the prayer before the taslim, Allahumma a'inni ala dhikrik wa shukrik wa husni ibadatik. O Allah, aid me upon remembering you and being grateful to you and worshiping you in a good manner. Mu'adh radiallahu anhu, he used to pray Salatul Isha with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And then he would go back to his neighborhood and pray Isha with the people. They'll be praying the voluntary prayer and the people are praying Isha behind him. And he began to recite from Surah Al-Baqarah. And it's not like us, we do a couple of verses, from the first page of Baqarah and then the Khalas, Allahu Akbar. No, he's going to recite the whole surah. So a man, he taslim down, left the salat, or went on the side and prayed. And when this reached Mu'adh, he said, Innahu munafiq, he's a hypocrite. Hadith is a Sahih Muslim. So the man went back and complained to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. O Messenger of Allah, Mu'adh, he prays Isha with you, and then he comes to lead us in prayer, and there are people who are old and elderly and working all day, and he's reciting from Baqarah. So the Prophet ﷺ, he went to Mu'adh and said, Ya Mu'adh, afattan anta? Afattan anta? Afattan anta? O Mu'adh, are you making fitna upon the people? Strong words. O Mu'adh, are you making fitna upon the people? O Mu'adh, are you making fitna upon the people? Strong words the Prophet used with Mu'adh, because Mu'adh, he's a scholar, he knows better. He's a knowledgeable person, so the Prophet was stern in his wording with Mu'adh. And then he directed Mu'adh that when he's leading the people in the prayer, to be mindful of those who are praying behind him. So recite from the likes of وَالشَّمْسِ وَضُحَاهَا سَبِّحِ اسْمَ رَبِّكَ الْأَعْلَى, and the smaller surah from the Quran. So here we have another example of the Prophet correcting a companion of his, someone who is beloved to him. Not just letting it go. A complaint was brought to him. The Prophet ﷺ went and addressed the complaint, even though it was with somebody he loves. Different from how things are today in some circles. If a complaint comes to the circle about someone amongst the group, they sweep it under the rug, and it never gets addressed. And then the oppression and the wrong, it continues on. Because there's the buddy system. My man, the bros, the bro hands, that type of mentality. Another example of another person the Prophet ﷺ loved dearly, Usama bin Zayd. Usama bin Zayd. The Prophet loved him and loved his father. But during one of the battles, there was a kafir that was killing the Muslims in the war, like fiercely. So Usama and another companion got the drop on him. They had him. He's cornered. So he says, La ilaha illallah. One companion held back. Usama bin Zayd went ahead and killed him. Wa alaikum assalam. When this news reached the Prophet ﷺ, he said, you killed the man after he said, La ilaha illallah? He said, O Messenger of Allah, he said, Ya Rasulullah, innama kana muta'awwidan. O Messenger of Allah, he only said it to stop me from killing him, basically. He didn't really mean it. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, أَقَتَلْتَهُ بَعْدَمَا قَالَ لَا إِلَهَ إِلَّا اللَّهِ. And he kept repeating this statement. You killed him after he said La ilaha illallah. One narration says, shouldn't you not have opened up his chest and looked into his heart? So the Prophet kept reprimanding him with that. You killed him after he said La ilaha illallah. You killed the man after he said La ilaha. Who was Usama bin Zayd? Somebody that the Prophet loves. Somebody that the Prophet loves. He loved him and he loved his father. But it did not stop him, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, from reprimanding Usama bin Zayd. Also, we have at times a man will reach the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he would not say, "Lam yakun ma bal fulan." What's wrong with someone? So rather, he would say, "Ma bal aqwan yaquluna kadha wa kadha." What's wrong with the people that they say such and such? So he would not name the person, but he would correct the mistake. So the point I'm going to show you, the Prophet ﷺ corrected mistakes different ways, according to the circumstances, according to the people. Some individuals, when they refute, they only have one way. They have tunnel vision. And everything is just on go. Everything is harsh. Everything is the fool, the idiot, this and that. And this is not the way of the Prophet ﷺ. He corrected people different ways, according to the situations, according to the circumstances, according to the individuals. There are times when the Prophet used harsh words, like when he said about the Khawarij, al-Khawarij kilabu nar, that the Khawarij are the dogs of the hellfire. But he used that harsh statement or those harsh words because of the greatness of their evil, of them killing Muslims, and declaring Muslims to be disbelievers. And as the Prophet said, يَقْتُلُونَ أَهْلَ الْإِسْلَامِ وَيَدَعُونَ أَهْلَ الْأَوْثَانِ. They killed the people of Islam and they abandoned the people of idolatry. Their harm is a great harm. This is one from the first of the harms that afflicted the Ummah from the groups of deviants, the Khawarij. So the Prophet ﷺ described them as being the dogs of the hellfire. Or like the Qadariyah. The Prophet said, Al-Qadariyah al-Majus hadihi al-Ummah. إن مرضوا فلا تعودوهم وإن ماتوا فلا تشهدوهم. The Qadariyah, meaning those who deny the Qadr of Allah, they are the Magians of this Ummah. Who are the Magians? The Magians are those who believe in like the God of light and the God of darkness. So the God of light creates good and then the God of darkness creates evil. So the Qadariyah resemble them because they say that basically they have complete free will. They deny the qadr of Allah, or they, as they say, Allah does not know what the person is going to do until after he does it, and that the person, that the evil is not under the decree of Allah. So other than their statements, which resemble the creed of the Magians. So the Prophet said, when they become sick, don't visit them. When they get sick, don't visit them, and when they die, don't witness their janazah. That's stern. Because of their evil. Khalid bin Walid, radiyallahu anhu, in a battle, he had, there was a woman that got killed amongst the people who got killed. And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he sent a messenger to Khalid to say, Inna Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam ya'muruk La taqtulanna dhariya wa la asifa. The Messenger of Allah commands you, do not kill any women and children, and do not kill any laborers. Khalid made a mistake. And the Prophet ﷺ sent the message correcting him. Another time, the Prophet ﷺ sent Khalid on a mission to call some people to Islam, but they did not know how to say, we accepted Islam. They didn't know how to say aslamna, so they said sabatna, yani we left our religion for a new religion. And Khalid, based upon his ijtihad, he didn't accept that. He didn't view it as them being Muslims, so he killed them. when this news reached the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the Prophet said, Allahumma inni abra'u ilayka mimma sana'a Khalid. Oh Allah, I free myself to you from that which Khalid did. Another example, and we will try to move on fast because of the time, and I want to mention some of the points from the telelink that we had also. When the Jews said to the Prophet, Assalamu alaikum, right? May death be upon you. Assalamu, not salam, Assalamu alaikum. The Prophet said, wa alaikum. Aisha radiallahu anha, she said, wa alaikum assalam wa la'natullah. She started to rebuke them. So the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, Ya Aisha, la takuni fahisha. Oh Aisha, don't be fahisha. Fahisha here doesn't mean indecent, like a person is immoral, but what he means here is don't go beyond the boundaries. Because they said assalamu alaikum, and the Prophet said wa alaikum, but she added to that. The curse of Allah may always be upon you, and she started to verbally rebuke them. So the Prophet told Aisha, Ya Aisha, la takuni fahisha. Oh Aisha, don't be fahisha, and don't go overboard. So she said, oh Messenger of Allah, you didn't hear what they said to you? He said, you didn't hear what I said to them? I said, upon you the same. So look at how the Prophet ﷺ dealt with his enemies. They said something evil to him, and he responded to them in a manner that was appropriate, by saying to them, and upon you the same. And that was it. And he sufficed himself with that. For his dua is answered regarding them, and their dua is not answered regarding him, ﷺ. But he taught Aisha a lesson. As he said, Mahlan ya Aisha, alayki birifq. Take it easy, Aisha. Upon you is gentleness. Now who is he talking about? And he's dealing with who here? No, who? No. The Jews. He's telling her this in reference to him, how she dealt with the Jews. The Yahud. So if the Prophet is saying to her, and she is the most beloved to him, upon you is gentleness, O Aisha. Wa iyaki wal unf, and be aware of being like stern and hard. Regarding how she responded to the Jews, how much more so when we deal with Muslims? The origin, when we refute or we correct a Muslim, is that we deal with them with gentleness and kindness. That's the origin. Yes, again, at times, you use sternness. Yes, again, at times, you have to be hard when addressing a matter. It depends, but that's not the origin. The origin is gentleness. So the Prophet, he said, Mahlan ya Aisha, alayki birrifq wa iyaki wal unf aw al fuhsh. Oh Aisha, take it easy. Upon you is gentleness, and be aware of being stern and going overboard. Allah, then he mentioned, Inna Allah yuhibbu rifq fil amr kulli. Allah, he loves gentleness in all of the affairs. Another time, the Prophet ﷺ returned home, and Aisha had a curtain that had some images on it, and the face of the Prophet became red. And then he said to her, أشد الناس عذابا يوم القيامة الذين يضاهون بخلق الله. The most severe of the people in punishment on the day of judgment are those who compete with the creation of Allah. Again, he's correcting her. And who is she to him? The most beloved of the people. So this methodology of we're silent when it comes to our mans, the bros, the people that are with us in our circle. For anybody else, we stern and harsh with them, and we attacking them, and we tearing them down and calling them all types of names. Where is this from the methodology of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam? Allah Azza wa Jalla, he mentions, وَلْتَكُمْ مِنْكُمْ أُمَّةٌ يَدْعُونَ إِلَى الْخَيْرِ وَيَأْمُرُونَ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ وَيَنْهَوْنَ عَنِ الْمُنكَرِ وَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْمُفْلِحُونَ. And let there be from you a nation who calls to that which is good, enjoining the good and forbidding the evil. Those are the ones who are successful. So the deen, or Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commands that there be a group from amongst the ummah who enjoins the good and forbids the wrong. And the scholars, they mentioned that enjoining the good and forbidding the wrong is a communal obligation. Not everybody has to do it. Not everybody has to say something. As long as there's someone or some people who are fulfilling the obligation, the responsibility is removed from the others who have the ability to carry out the responsibility. Different from the methodology and the mentality of those who have this extremist views, and that when things happen, they want everybody to have a statement. Everybody has to take a position. Everybody has to say something. What is your position on this matter? Okay, y'all the heads of the dawah, y'all spoke already, everybody else got to speak. You know, you see the contradictions of these individuals. They describe a group of brothers as not being qualified to teach. They describe a group of brothers as, oh, they didn't study nowhere, oh, who knows them from the ulama, and they mention all of these things, even though you have individuals amongst them who never studied nowhere for real. Right? For real. But they don't say nothing about them because that's their mans in them, right? That's the bros. But then other people, oh, they didn't do it, and then when it comes to, oh, why are they silent about this? You just said I'm not qualified to teach. Why I gotta talk for? You're the qualified one, you do the talking. You see the double standards, you see the contradictions in the manhaj that these individuals are upon. We don't find this with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So it's very important that our methodology is the methodology of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and when we follow the prophetic methodology, we won't have these contradictions in our stances. Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Qayyim al-Jawziyya rahimahullah ta'ala, he mentioned, وَمَا أَمَرَ اللَّهُ بِأَمْرٍ إِلَّا وَلِلشَّيْطَانِ فِيهِ رُزْغَتَانِ إِمَّا إِلَى تَفْرِيطٍ وَإِضَاعَةٍ وَإِمَّا إِلَى إِفْرَاطٍ وَغُلُوٍ وَدِينُ اللَّهِ وَسَطٌ بَيْنَ الْجَافِ عَنْهُ وَالْغَالِ فِيهِ. And the Shaykh, he also mentioned a similar statement from Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Qayyim in his lecture, that Allah does not command with a commandment except that shaitan, he comes to that commandment and tries to pull you in one or two directions. Either in the direction of negligence and being wasteful, or to the direction of extremism. So Allah commands you with something. Shaitan comes and tries to either get you to be extreme regarding that commandment, go overboard, or he tries to get you to be negligent regarding the commandment. In the religion of Allah is the middle path between negligence and extremism. Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah ta'ala, he mentions دين الله وسط بين الغالي فيه والجافي عنه والله تعالى ما أمر عباده بأمر إلا اعترض الشيطان فيه بأمرين لا يبالي بأيهما ظفر إما إفراط فيه وإما تفريط فيه. The religion of Allah is the balanced path between extremism and negligence. And Allah doesn't command His servants with a commandment except that the shaitan, he comes and tries to interject into that commandment two matters. And he doesn't care which of the two that you do. So now we see the angle of attack from the shaitan. Either it's going to be the angle of extremism to get you to go overboard, or it's going to be the angle of negligence to get you to fall short. This is how the shaitan leads mankind astray, with extremism or with negligence. So then he goes on to mention that the shaitan, he doesn't care which one of the two you fall into, because both of them at the end of the day leads to the hellfire. Both of them at the end of the day takes you away from the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he mentions, وَكَذَلِكَ جَعَلْنَاكُمْ أُمَّةً وَسَطًا. Likewise, we have made you a just and balanced nation. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he mentioned, showing the importance of being balanced. He said, إِنَّ مِنْ إِجْلَالِ اللَّهِ إِكْرَامَ ذِي الشَّيْبَةِ الْمُسْلِمِ ذِي الشَّيْبَةِ الْمُسْلِمِ وحامل القرآن غير الغالي فيه والجافي عنه وإكرام ذي السلطان المقصد أو كما قال صلى الله عليه وسلم. Indeed, from the magnification and glorifying of Allah is to honor the Muslim who has gray hairs. This is from magnifying and glorifying Allah. To honor the Muslim who has gray hairs, meaning be respectful, to the elders. For those with the gray hair, knowing the gray hair is a symbol of the person being an elder. Respecting those who are older. And also having respect for the one who is a carrier of the Quran. We're not just talking about somebody carrying a mushaf in a hand and walking around with it, but the hamil of the Quran is somebody who has the Quran in his heart and he implements the Quran. As he says, what? He is not extreme regarding the Quran and he's not negligent. This person is honored. And honoring that person as a carrier of the Quran, he's not extreme and he's not negligent. This is from magnifying and glorifying Allah. And then the last one he mentioned, honoring the just ruler or the just leader. But the shahid here, the hamil or the one who's hamil al-Quran, غير الغالي فيه والجافي عنه. The person who carries the Quran, he is not extreme and he's not negligent as it relates to the Quran. This person is someone who's honorable. So now if the person is a person who knows Quran, but he's extreme, then there's no honor for him. If a person he knows Quran but he's negligent, there's no honor for him. There's no honor because the Quran is against extremism and the Quran is against negligence. Abdullah bin Mas'ud radiallahu anhu, he mentioned خط لنا رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم خطا ثم قال هذا سبيل الله. The Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam drew a line on the floor and said, this is the path of Allah. ثم خط خطوطا عن يمينه وعن شماله ثم قال هذه السبل المتفرقة على كل سبيل منها الشيطان يدعو إليه ثم قرأ وأن هذا صراطي مستقيما فاتبعوه ولا تتبعوا السبل فتفرق بكم عن سبيلي. He said, the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam drew a line for us on the floor and he said, this is the path of Allah. And then he drew lines to the right and the left and he said, these separated paths, at the head of each path there is a shaitan that is calling to it. And then he recited the statement of Allah, and this is my path, the straight path, therefore follow it and do not follow the other paths, for they will separate you away from his path. The paths of the shaitan are the paths of extremism and negligence. So now let's look at those who are negligent as it relates to refuting the one who is in opposition. They have principles like nusahih wa la nujarrih. We're going to make a correction, but we're not going to criticize. Because criticizing people causes separation amongst the Muslims. This is the type of methodology or principles they come with. Another principle of theirs, we sit with everyone. نأخذ الحق ونترك الباطل. We sit with anyone, or sit with any sheikh you like, take the truth, leave the falsehood. No refuting of the mistake, if there is a mistake. Or they say, لا نتكلم في المسلمين. We don't talk bad about the Muslims, because it's called separation. Or they say, we want a vast methodology that we can include everyone and bring them all under the umbrella of Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah. Or the famous principle that they call the golden principle, نتعاون فيما اتفقنا عليه ونعذر بعضنا بعض فيما اختلفنا فيه. That we cooperate on those matters that we agree on, and whatever we disagree on, we just going to pardon each other, meaning in a general sense, or in an unrestricted sense. These principles, and there are others, these are false principles. And these principles do away with the matter of refuting the person who's in opposition, or correcting the mistake of the one who is mistaken, or criticizing the person who is deserving of criticism. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he mentions, إن الذين يكتمون ما أنزلنا من البينات والهدى من بعد ما بيناه للناس في الكتاب أولئك يلعنهم الله ويلعنهم اللاعنون. Indeed, those who conceal, they hide that which we have revealed from the clarity and the guidance after we have made it clear to mankind in the book. Those are the ones whom Allah, He has cursed them, and those who curse have cursed. Sheikh Salih Fawzan, Hafidhahullah Ta'ala, he said about this verse, or commented on this verse, he said, لا يجوز للمسلم الذي عنده علم أن يسقط على البدعة والمخالفات ولا يبينها للناس لأنه إذا سكت احتج الناس به وقالوا لو كان هذا محرما أو ممنوعا ما سكت العالم الفلاني وهو يراه. Sheikh Salih Fawzan, he said, commenting on that verse, it is not permissible for the Muslim who has knowledge to be quiet about matters of innovation and matters of opposition. Now, how can a person ascribe himself to the methodology of Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah? He has studied with the scholars and benefited from the scholars and been in their lessons and other than that, but then cooperate with an organization that clearly are not upon the methodology of the Salaf, clearly have opposition to the Kitab and the Sunnah, the understanding of the Salaf, and the person is quiet about those things. لا يجوز للمسلم الذي عنده علم أن يسقط على البدع والمخالفات. It is not permissible for the Muslim who has knowledge to be quiet about innovation and matters of opposition. How can you be quiet? What are you doing there with that organization? Oh, we're trying to bring about change. When? When are you going to speak up? Oh no, our presence there is bringing about a lot of good. Get your own organization. Get your own organization and start your own thing and bring the good to the people. Why are you mixing with these people who clearly are upon falsehood, clearly in opposition to the Quran and Sunnah, understanding the Sahaba? The pay is that good? The money is that good? Because you have some of these brothers, they say, I don't care, I'll go anywhere as long as they pay.
Yeah.
A person has to be careful with this, compromising the deen and the principles for money. Sheikh Al-Baz, rahimahullah, let me go on and continue with Sheikh Salih Fawzan. He says, and then the person does not clarify to the people that this is not permissible. Because if he is silent, then the people will use this as a proof. Look, it's not my words, it's the words of Sheikh Salih Fawzan. If he is quiet, the people will use this as a proof. Oh no, we got Fulan, he's with us, he didn't say anything. He's on the board of advisors, the board of trustees, or whatever position the person got in the organization. He didn't say anything, who are you? Fulan is with us. And also we got Fulan too, he contributes, he's with us, he works with us. They didn't say anything. So now, because of those individuals that are with them who are supposed to be representatives of the Sunnah, they're quiet and not saying nothing. They use them as a proof and a justification for their mukhalafat and their bid'ah. It's the words of Sheikh Salih Fawzan. So they will say, if this matter was haram or prohibited, then why did Alim so-and-so, he didn't say anything? Why was he quiet? He's seen what we did. He's seen what we said. He's seen when I went out to the protest and I was there marching and doing, he's seen everything. He didn't say anything. I didn't get a call. And if he did get a call and he's continuing to do what they do, isn't this a sign for you, brother, that it's time for you to leave and do your own thing? The money must be that good. والله أعلم. قال الشيخ بن باز رحمه الله تعالى: ومتى سكت أهل الحق عن بيان أخطاء المخطئين وأغلاط الغالطين لم يحصل منهم ما أمرهم الله به من الدعوة إلى الخير والأمر بالمعروف والنهي عن المنكر. The Shaykh says, whenever the people of the truth are quiet when it comes to clarifying the mistakes of those who are mistaken and the wrongs of those who are wrong, that which Allah has commanded them to do from calling to that which is good and enjoining the good and forbidding the evil, it has not taken place. When the people of the truth are quiet, we have not done what Allah has commanded us to do. When the people of the truth are quiet, then the person who is wrong, he remains upon his mistake. And we are Muslims, we are brothers to one another, we're supposed to want good for one another. Even like the people of innovation, we want guidance for them. We want guidance for them. We want them to be upon the sunnah, upon that which is correct. But if we're quiet about the truth and we're just taking their money, getting a paycheck for being amongst them, we never say nothing, when are they going to change? When is the change going to take place? When we never say nothing. We just rubbing elbows and shoulders with them and enjoying the perks of being a part of the institution and whatever the case is. And then every now and then you do your little video here, your article there, and it's not refuting anything of the mistakes. But that's wisdom. Sheikh bin Baz, he says, that being silent about these affairs, there's a lot of evil that will come. From those matters of evil, the person will be sinful who is silent. And the person who is mistaken will remain upon his mistake. And the one who is in opposition to the truth will remain upon his error. And this is in opposition to that which Allah has legislated. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he mentions, وَإِذَا رَأَيْتَ الَّذِينَ يَخُوضُونَ فِي آيَاتِنَا فَأَعْرِضْ عَنْهُمْ حَتَّى يَخُوضُوا فِي حَدِيثٍ غَيْرِهِ وَإِمَّا يُنْسِيَنَّكَ الشَّيْطَانُ فَلَا تَقْعُدْ بَعْدَ الذِّكْرَى مَعَ الْقَوْمِ الظَّالِمِينَ. And when you see the people indulging in false speech regarding our verses, turn away from them, get away from them, until they indulge in other speech. And if the shaitan causes you to forget, do not remain sitting with them after remembering. Do not remain sitting with the wrongdoing people after remembering. So now this verse is dealing with being with people who are speaking falsehood about the deen. As Imam al-Sa'di rahimahullah says, al-murad bil-khawd fi ayatillah التكلم بما يخالف الحق. That which is intended as it relates to indulging in vain speech regarding the verses of Allah, speaking with that which opposes the truth. Anyone who speaks with that which opposes the truth falls under this verse as being people يخوضون في آياتنا, as Allah mentions. They indulge in vain speech regarding our verses. Allah says, فَأَعْرِضْ عَنْهُمْ. Turn away from them, get away from them. Don't remain sitting there. Don't remain with them until they change their speech, meaning until they make tawbah and leave off that deviance or that falsehood or that wrong that they were promoting and propagating and speaking about. Imam al-Qurtubi rahimahullah ta'ala, he says, من خاض في آيات تركت مجالسته وهجرته مؤمنا أو كافرا. This is one of the speech of the scholars Imam al-Qurtubi relays, that whoever indulges in vain speech regarding the verses of Allah, I abandon sitting with him and I leave him, I boycott him, whether it is a Muslim, a believer or a disbeliever. Ibn al-Arabi rahimahullah ta'ala, he said, وَهَذَا دَلِيلٌ عَلَى أَنَّ مُجَالَسَةَ أَهْلِ الْكَبَائِرِ لَا تَحِلُّ. This is an evidence that sitting with people who commit major sins is not permissible. We didn't even talk about bid'ah now. Because people, a lot of times, people, when they say, oh, don't sit with this one, they say, oh, he's one part. Okay, this also means don't sit with the criminals either. Because we know how some people like to hang out with criminals. And criminals, they are celebrated, amongst certain circles. People outward with fist and wrongdoing. But that person has a position. And he is from the noble brothers. وهذا دليل على أن مجالسة أهل الكبائر لا تحل. Ibn al-Arabi, not Ibn Arabi, but Ibn al-Arabi. Ibn al-Arabi, that's the Sunni Salafi Sheikh. And Ibn Arabi without Alif and Lam, that's the Sufi Hararik, who says that everything is Allah and Allah is everything. So don't mix the two up, please. Allah mentions, وَلَا تَرْكَنُوا إِلَى الَّذِينَ ظَلَمُوا, and do not incline and lean towards those who are wrongdoers. Imam al-Qurtubi, he said, في هذه الآية دلالة على هجران أهل الكفر والمعاصي من أهل البدع وغيره، فإن صحبتهم كفر أو معصية، إذ الصحبة لا تكون إلا عن مودة. Imam al-Qurtubi, he said, in this verse there is an evidence and a proof for abandoning the people of kufr and the people of sin, from Ahl al-Bid'ah or other than them. For indeed, companionship can either be, having companionship with them can be disbelief or can be disobedience. Therefore, companionship doesn't take place except when there's love. So if you're hanging out with the criminals, you have some type of love for them. If you're hanging out with the people of innovation, there's some type of love you have for them. We're not talking about when the scholars have sat with the people of innovation to refute them and the likes. It's something different. The last point I want to mention, or proof I want to mention, as it relates to those who they are negligent when it comes to refuting the one in opposition, the statement of the Prophet ﷺ to Aisha. He had recited the statement of Allah, هو الذي أنزل عليك الكتاب منه آيات محكمات هن أم الكتاب وأخر متشابهات فأما الذين في قلوبهم زيغ فيتبعون ما تشابه منه ابتغاء الفتنة وابتغاء تأويله. Allah, he says, he is the one who sent down upon you the book, and from the book there are the clear verses, and they are the mother of the book, and then you have the other verses that are not clear. As for those who have deviance in their heart, they follow that which is unclear, seeking fitna and seeking its interpretation. The Prophet said to Aisha, after reciting this verse, فَإِذَا رَأَيْتُمُ الَّذِينَ يَتَّبِعُونَ مَا تَشَابَهَ مِنْهُ فَأُولَٰئِكَ الَّذِينَ سَمَّى اللَّهُ فَاحْذَرُوهُمْ. When you see those individuals who are following that which is unclear, those are the ones whom Allah has named to have deviance in their heart. Stay away from them. How can a Muslim say that warning against mistakes and errors and refuting people in opposition causes separation when the Prophet himself said to Aisha and to the rest of the Muslims, فَاحْذَرُوهُمْ, stay away from them, beware of them. Take caution when it comes to them. Umar ibn al-Khattab, radiallahu anhu, there was an individual by the name of Sabir, and he used to be indulging in unclear matters as it relates to the meaning of the Quran and speaking without knowledge. So when Umar met him, Umar struck him He was beating him to the point that the blood was coming down his face. And then he started hollering. He said, Hasbuk ya Amir al-Mu'mineen. All right, that's enough. Oh, commander of the believers. But don't nobody go beat nobody in the head here. We know how things can get, serious here in Philadelphia. We don't want no violence, okay? So don't say, oh, the brother said, Umar ibn Khattab. Then you go down there and you whoop up on Scrams down there running his mouth and stuff. No, leave Scrams alone and take caution from him. Don't put your hands on nobody. But Umar, he was the ruler, so he had the right to punish this individual because he was speaking about the book of Allah without knowledge and spreading fitna, spreading doubts. So Umar punished him. And he said, Hasbuk ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, Wallahi faqad dhahaba alladhi kuntu ajidu fi ra'si. I swear by Allah, that which was in my head, it left. Said, it's going now, I'm okay, I'm straight now, like. MashaAllah. When our parents come up and beat some sense into you, you keep asking me and beating some sense to somebody, right? Allah. But well, here's a question that comes. Why do people fall into negligence regarding this matter? Number one is ignorance. Ignorance of the Kitab and the Sunnah and the methodology of the Salaf. Number two, people not reading the books of the Salaf. Number three, people not knowing the history of the scholars of the Sunnah and the trials and tribulations they went through to establish the truth. Number four, people being influenced by the false principles and the speech of the people of innovation. Number five, people being far away from the gatherings of the scholars who cultivate the people upon the correct methodology. Number six, mixing with the people of desires and innovation. So now when you start mixing with them, you start, to incline towards them. You don't want to say nothing against them. All right, so now you want to, being good with them. You want to get a check from them. So you're not going to say nothing because it's going to mess up the bag, as they say, right? Even though you're messing up your good deeds with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you're incurring sin. Also, giving precedence to the friendship and the connection of love that they have with them, these individuals, over the deen. Another matter is the love of the dunya and fear of losing the dunya. Another matter is weak iman, and another matter is sometimes people are confused between how to deal with the person who is to be warned against and the person who is to be called to the truth. How much time I have left? Huh? Clean. Jazakallah khairan. You heard it? So nobody say nothing. It's on the brother right here, right? It's like I got plenty time. So nobody pass no notes up here talking about 10 minutes and all that stuff. Any note come out, you intercept the note, right? So now we move on to the other aspect. We finish with the negligence. We establish the proofs and the evidence. It's not allowed to be negligent when it comes to refuting those in opposition. That this is from the deen. This is a principle of the deen. The Prophet ﷺ did it. Before that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala refutes people in the Quran. قُلْ يَا أَيُّهَا الْكَافِرُونَ. So many verses, so many surahs dealing with refuting the people of falsehood. Now we deal with extremism when it comes to this. Sheikh, what you doing? Okay, I'm going to get him up. Now, Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah, rahimahullah ta'ala, he mentions a beautiful point here. And this is more so dealing with what we're dealing with today. He says, وَالْكَلَامْ فِي النَّاسِ يَجِبُ أَنْ يَكُونْ بِعِلْمٍ وَعَدْلٍ لَا بِجَهْلٍ وَظُلْمٍ كَحَالِ أَهْلِ الْبِدَعِ. He says, speaking about people, it is obligatory when it comes to speaking about people, that speaking about people must be done with knowledge and justice. If you want to say something about somebody, another Muslim, anybody, not just a Muslim, you say something about a kafir, You say something about a person of innovation. You say something about a person of the Sunnah. You have to make sure that when you speak, you are speaking with knowledge and you are speaking with justice, not with ignorance and oppression, like the condition of the people of innovation. So when you see brothers speaking out against other brothers, speaking out against other communities, and that speech is not based upon knowledge and justice, rather it is based upon ignorance and oppression, this individual has resembled the people of innovation. As Ibn Taymiyyah says, كَحَالِ أَهْلِ الْبِدْعِ. So now, who's really falling into deviance? People, they're quick to say, oh, those individuals are astray. Oh, those individuals have fallen into deviance. One ignoramus said, they left the Jama'ah. Subhanallah bihamdi. Because we don't go to a specific masjid, because we don't attend specific classes, we left the Jama'ah. Or because we don't agree with a specific view of one of the scholars and we hold the view of other scholars based upon what we studied, not just based upon blind following, we left the Jama'ah. So now the Jama'ah with these individuals has become a particular place or particular group of people excluding the others. So now you're not with that group, even though you believe in the Kitab and the Sunnah. You have the understanding of the Salaf you take from the ulama of Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah. You left the Jama'ah because you are not connected with Fulan and Fulan and Masjid Fulan. Is that ilm al-adl or is that jahl wa dhulm? It's jahl wa dhulm. It's clear, it's jahl wa dhulm. It's ignorance and oppression. And this is the state of the people of innovation. And I'm not making tabdir. Rather, I'm saying that the people who talk about other people with oppression and ignorance, they resemble the people of innovation. Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah ta'ala, he states, فَإِنَّهُ لَا يُعْلَمْ الْعَدْلُ وَالظُّلْمُ إِلَّا بِالْعِلْمِ. Indeed, justice and oppression is not known except with knowledge. So we have to have knowledge in order to distinguish between what is just and what is oppression. Here's a beautiful point from Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah. He says, وَالشَّيْطَانُ يُرِيد مِنَ الْإِنسَانِ الْإِسْرَافِ فِي أُمُورِهِ كُلِّهَا فَإِنَّهُ رَآهُ مَائِلًا إِلَى الرَّحْمَةِ زَيَّنَ لَهُ الرَّحْمَةِ حَتَّى لَا يُبْغِضُ مَا أَبْغَضَهُ اللَّهُ وَلَا يَغَارُ لِمَا يَغَارُ اللَّهُ مِنْهُ. Shaitan, he wants a person to be wasteful when it comes to all of his affairs. If he sees a person lean into the angle of mercy, then Shaitan beautifies for him mercy to the point that the person does not hate that which Allah hates. See how he calls him to be negligent. The person is a merciful person. So now Shaitan keeps beautifying for him mercy. Oh, this is from the deen. Mercy, mercy, mercy. Yes, mercy is from the deen. Gentleness is from the deen. But there are times when you have to be stern. But the Shaitan, he makes the person so lenient, so gentle, that now he doesn't hate the things that Allah hates. Look how the Shaitan led him astray from a matter of the deen. And the person is not upset over those things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he dislikes. Because everything is mercy now. And then you have the other hand, وَإِنْ رَآهُ مَائِلًا إِلَى الشِّدَّةِ زَيَّنَ لَهُ الشِّدَّةِ. And if he sees the person leading to the angle of being stern, then Shaitan beautifies for him sternness. فِي غَيْرِ ذَاتِ اللَّهِ, for other than the sake of Allah. So now the person, he's stern, he's rigid. So the Shaitan keeps beautifying for him being stern. Yeah, you on the minhaj, yeah, you hold it. MashaAllah, you standing firm. You see the statement like, man, MashaAllah, may Allah bless those who are standing firm upon the minhaj. MashaAllah, don't go to the Allegheny Masjid. MashaAllah, stand firm. I know it's Najeeb Mubel. There's always going to be Najeeb Mubel بإذن الله تعالى. Like it, who like it, don't like it, don't like it, you know. I don't care what the man behind the minhaj says.
That's him.
No. The Allegheny Masjid. No, we want to call it with the North Philly Masjid.
That's good.
First of all, who are you to be talking? Who are you to be criticizing?
What is your name of your knowledge?
No, seriously. Who are you? When do you become an authority? And the people know you. I ain't talking about me. I'm talking your people in your town know you. You changing names of masajid and stuff like that. Who was scholar preceded you on? We always want to talk about the Mashiach. The Sheikh Rabi'a said change the name of Masjid Mubel to the Allegheny Masjid. You want to stay right at the throw Sheikh Rabi'a's name out there all the time. Did Sheikh Rabi'a say change the name of Masjid Mubel to the Allegheny Masjid? Or was it one of the little sheikhs?
Sheikh al-Dunya.
Jahl wa dhulm. Jahl wa dhulm, I'm telling you. Can't make this stuff up. Jahl wa dhulm is ignorance and is oppression. Ignorance and oppression. And let's just say, for argument's sake, there is a justified criticism against the imam. What about the community? Come on, man. Moving on. Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah, he says, so when the shaitan sees the individual leaning towards shiddah, always being stern, he beautifies sternness. To the point now the individual is stern for other than the sake of Allah. حتى يترك من الإحسان والبر واللين والصلة والرحمة ما يأمر به الله ورسوله. To the point the person leaves off goodness and righteousness and gentleness and having the connection in the mercy which Allah commands with as well as His Messenger. So now his thing is being stern because he thinks that he's holding firm to the minhaj. So now the shaitan beautifies him. Yeah, you holding the fort down. You being stern. You taking the right position. MashaAllah. Strong on the minhaj. Feet firm on the minhaj. But really, the shaitan is playing you, taking you away from that which Allah has commanded you with of ihsan, bir, wal-leen, wal-sila, wal-rahmah. This is what Allah and His Messenger have commanded. وَيَتَعَدَّ فِي الشِّدَّةِ. He goes overboard in his sternness. فَيَزِيدْ فِي الذَّمِّ وَالْبُغْضِ وَالْعِقَابِ عَلَى مَا يُحِبُّهُ اللَّهُ وَرَسُولُهُ. So he goes beyond the boundaries in criticizing and blaming. Sounds familiar, right? As if Shaykh al-Islam was alive, and he was in he was in Cherrytown. What was that? What's the nice area? Chestnut Hill, and he's writing what's going on down in Philadelphia, right? The shaitan caused the individual to go overboard in his sternness, so now he's going beyond the boundaries in his criticism of people, his anger and hatred of people, and his punishment of the people. We're going to punish the whole masjid. Change the name, make it seem like now they are the masjid of people of bid'ah. Because they are not on the methodology of Sheikh Muqbil. How can they be called Sheikh? Masjid Muqbil. If we was to use this principle, then a lot of masjids going to have to change their name too now. We'll just deal with one masjid. Can't just say Masjid Muqbil. We could point out some things too, that the names of masjids or the administration of masjids are in opposition to the name of the masjid. Is this the game we want to start playing now? Come on, where is this from the deen?
You know my name is not.
Ibn Taymiyyah says, حَتَّى يَتَعَدَّ الْحُدُودِ, until the point that they transgress, the individual transgresses the boundaries. وهو من إسرافه في أمره فالأول مذنب والثاني مسرف. So the person, he keeps being stern, and the shaitan has beautified for him sternness to the point that he has gone beyond the legislated boundaries. And this is from the wastefulness and negligence in his affair. The first individual that was mentioned is the sinner, and the second one is the one who has gone beyond the boundaries. And Allah, He says, إِنَّهُ لَا يُحِبُّ الْمُسْرِفِينَ. Indeed, He, Allah, does not love those who are wasteful and go beyond the boundaries. The Prophet said, إِيَّاكُمْ وَالْغُلُوفِ الدِّينِ فَإِنَّمَا هَلَكَ مَنْ كَانَ قَبْلَكُمْ بِالْغُلُوفِ الدِّينِ. Be aware of having extremism in the religion, for indeed extremism in the religion has destroyed the people before you. When it comes to refuting people, there are three categories the scholars mention. Refuting the disbelievers, refuting those who are Muslims but they are from the groups of deviants, and the third category, refuting those who have made mistakes. And this is whether the person is a person of the Sunnah, the person is a scholar, the person is a student, even the common folk from amongst the Muslims. When a person has made a mistake in speech, actions, or in aqidah on how the person views things. But you have individuals who go to extremism in their refutations of people. The scholars, they mention, you have two categories of people when it comes to extremism in refutation. Ahlul Batil, the people of falsehood, and they are the people of Tamyir. When it comes to the people of innovation, they're weak with them. They're kind with them. They don't refute them. They don't say nothing about the people of innovation. They have Tamyir. But when it comes to the people of the Sunnah, they go overboard in their refutations of them and speaking about them. And you found that there was a group of individuals, who claimed to be from the people of the Sunnah in Egypt at one time, from the likes of Muhammad Hassan and others, but Muhammad Hassan specifically because he had put out this tape, إِلَى وَلَاتَ التَّجْرِيحِ, to the extremists of criticism and disparagement. And because they were upset that the scholars of the Sunnah were speaking out against certain individuals and bringing their statements and their positions that these individuals have in their books and in their lectures and refuting them. So these individuals will say they were people of the Sunnah and vanguards of the Sunnah in Egypt. They were mad that the scholars of the Sunnah were refuting these people of innovation, from the likes of Sheikh Rabi'a, Sheikh Muhammad bin Hadi, and others than them, Sheikh Ahmed al-Najmi, and other than them. So they used to call them, these are individual extremists and refuting. And it's not that the scholars were extremists. The scholars, they seen the need to speak out against those things that were harming the Muslim Ummah. So Ahl al-Batil, they are one of the categories of people who have extremism. They're negligent when it comes to people of innovation, but they are extreme when it comes to the people of Sunnah. And the Shaykh also mentioned that in his lecture, but he went into a different direction as it relates to some of the points he would mention. But he did mention something of this. And then you have the people of extremism when it comes to refuting those in opposition. They have extremism when it comes to placing rulings upon the mistake, meaning they make the mistake to be bigger than what it is. They make the mistake, it's a mistake, but they make the mistake to be bigger than what it is. The scholars, they say, if a person made a mistake in relation to something recommended, it's not similar to making a mistake in something that is obligatory. If somebody made a mistake as it relates to aqidah, that's different than somebody making a mistake as it relates to one of the branches of the deen. So, passing or being extreme when it comes to passing rulings upon the mistake itself, this is from the methodology of the Khawarij. Because the Khawarij, they ruled that major sins take you outside the fold of Islam. And some even say any sin. Some of the more extreme groups from the extremists, they say any sin you commit takes you outside of the fold of Islam. And then secondly, they have extremism when it comes to passing rulings upon the individuals. Come over?
Yeah, I think he's over.
He can't. Not more. His credibility don't ran out.
تكلمت أكثر من ساعة.
عفوا. أحتاج أكثر من ذلك. لا ربي. There's more. Is the brother here?
لا يعني هذا الوقت لأبي زينب.
Oh, عفوا. جزاكم الله خير. All right, let me just wrap up. My apologies. My apologies. Sincere apologies. طيب, lastly, Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah ta'ala, he mentions فأهل السنة يستعملون معهم العدل والإنصاف ولا يظلمونهم فإن الظلم حرام مطلقا. That the people of the Sunnah, they utilize justice and fairness with them, and they do not oppress them, for indeed oppression is prohibited unrestrictedly. And this is in dealing with disbelievers. As Allah mentions, كونوا قوامين لله شهداء بالقسط ولا يجرمنكم شنآن قوم على ألا تعدلوا اعدلوا هو أقرب للتقوى. So being individuals who stand up for what's right, for the sake of Allah, witnesses to that which is just, and do not let your hatred for a people cause you to be unjust, rather be just, it is nearer to piety. So he mentions فإنه تعالى أمر بالقسط على أعدائنا الكفار فكيف بإخواننا المسلمين والمسلمون إخوة. Allah has commanded us to be just and fair with our enemies who are disbelievers, so how much more so for our Muslim brothers? And the Muslims are brothers. And you have the hadith al-Qudsi of the Prophet ﷺ that he mentioned that Allah said, يا عبادي إني حرمت الظلم على نفسي وجعلته محرما بينكم فلا تظالموا. O my servants, indeed I have made oppression forbidden upon myself, and I have made it forbidden amongst you, so do not oppress one another. Now, shake it off. Yes. I don't know.
Go ahead. To the 5 pillars of Islam.
Pertaining to the subject. When is like is names recommended to be used, and
At times,
other than you know what I'm saying, like when are those?
when there's a necessity, when there's a need. Some in you know, subhanAllah, because there are many rules and regulations the scholars mention when it comes to these type of affairs. One matter the scholars mention about people not being hasty and rushing to just put things out and to say things, and verifying that something has actually been said or a mistake has actually been made before you go out and say someone has made a mistake or someone is in opposition to the truth. The person has opposed the minhaj. Are you sure? Before you go putting that stuff out there, before you go saying that, before you go tweeting behind a magazine name, you sure about the things you're putting out there? You ready to stand in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with starting this chain reaction of people making tabdir and the likes? That came from you. You're the person who's going to be responsible for that, my man. You ready to stand in front of Allah? Because we all ready to bring you to account in front of Allah. For now, people is basically saying that we have left the Jama'ah and we are the people of innovation and the likes, whether they say it directly or indirectly. You started that, so you ready to be accountable for that? People have to be mindful, not be hasty when it comes to passing judgments and rulings upon people. So the scholar, they mentioned that one must take into consideration the pros and the cons about mentioning a name, if there's a benefit in mentioning a name. Sometimes Ahlul Sunnah may be weak in a place, and if we go to mention a name, it's going to cause harm upon us, so we don't mention a name. Oh, I'm sorry, Sheikh, come on. I'm sorry.
No, finish up. That's important.
Yes, Jazakallah khair. My man.
He made us that energy.
No, but seriously, you understand?
Where I'm coming from.
Yeah, a person has to look at the pros and the cons. Is it a benefit to mention name? The Prophet used to say at times, what's with the people? And then sometimes the Prophet ﷺ addressed the individual directly and mentioned him by name. So when you look at the seerah of the Prophet ﷺ, it was something you see he corrected people different ways, different times, at different times. The man urinated in the masjid, he was a Bedouin, the Prophet was easy with him because he didn't know any better. But with Mu'adh, he said, are you making fitna, O Mu'adh? So you have to look how the Prophet ﷺ took into consideration the different people that he was addressing. Comes, and this is one of the most important points I wanted to mention, that when a mistake comes, especially from a person who's known to be a person of the Sunnah, a person who's not with the people of innovation, a person whose history speaks for itself, his classes are online, you know the person is calling to the deen, okay, it may seem like something is wrong, why don't you just call the person and ask the individual before you rush to put something out there? Look at how the Prophet dealt with Hatib ibn Abi Balta'a. He sent a letter to go to the Quraysh to inform them about the Prophet was coming to attack Mecca. The Prophet, he said to him, Ya Hatib, ma hamalaka ala ma sana'at. Hatib, why did you do what you did? Outwardly, this is treason, to inform the enemy of the plans of the ruler or the leader. It's treason. But Hatib, he didn't do it because he had a hatred for the deen. It was a worldly reason why he did it. And Shaykh Uthaymeen, he says, from those affairs that are befitting, that we must be mindful of, that a scholar is to be asked, Ma hamalaka ala hadha al-qawl, the Shaykh Uthaymeen, what made you make this statement? Because possibly he will give you an answer and alert you to something that you didn't know. Or he will clarify another angle to look at the situation. Everything is not just black and white every single time. And especially when you're dealing with your brothers from the people of the Sunnah, don't be so hasty to rush to judgment and put things out there. Speak to your brother. Ask for those things that there is no other possibility for that matter to be, except for something that is wrong. Yes, we have to speak up, we have to say something, we have to make correction, we have to give advice, and even sometimes we have to mention names. Barakallahu feekum wa subhanaka wa bihamdika ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk.